Hey, it's Julio, Ricardo, Varela, Latino Rebels. And here we are. And, I was watching Get Back, the Beatles documentary, because that's who I am. And there's a part of it where they talk about getting back, going back to your country, because there was this big anti-immigrant movement that the Beatles were protesting back in the day when they were trying to create this song. And they sang about a Pakistani and a Puerto Rican. So I'm sitting here going, well, I'm Puerto Rican. I need to find a Pakistani. And I actually know a Pakistani. And that Pakistani's name is Wajahat Ali. So Waj, you want to come on with me? Because we're going to present something here. How are you?
You asked for a Pakistani? I was here. I just appeared like that.
So Waj, we're on because we created this idea. We're going to present this segment that we worked earlier this year that is called This Week in White Journalism. And what's interesting about it is that there's so many damn examples of what we're starting to call white journalism. Can you define what white journalism is to you first? Because I think we need to define this, what we're going to present soon.
White journalism is the view from nowhere. It is objective. It is the view of the common man from the heartland who lives in the Rust Belt and drinks real coffee in a real diner. It is from the grassroots, and it is for the mainstream. And it does not see race because it does not see racism. And so white journalism centers whiteness above all else and treats the rest of us as ethnic condiments to be tolerated once in a while.
So that, right. So we're the ethnic condiments, and we decided to do a segment about that called This Week in White Journalism. And we focus on one example that we're going to present soon, but there must be recent examples of white journal. I mean, what do you think? Like, what are some examples that every day? So give me some examples of news that's breaking. Or
I mean, we didn't plan this, but top of my head, right? Ilhan Omar gets death threats, Islamophobia, mainstream by Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene. As of today, still no condemnation from Republican leadership. Imagine if the situation was reversed. If anyone from the squad had said anything like this to Boebert or Greene when it comes to their Christianity, call them terrorist sympathizers, even though they literally are. Go back and see the coverage of when Ilhan Omar did a tweet or when AOC does wears a dress, the demonization of the squad, the both sides framing, the way that they're using the squad, predominantly women of color, as these markers of extremism to paint Democrats. But then Madison Cawthorn, literally after the Rittenhouse verdict, says, be armed and dangerous. He literally looks in the camera and says, be armed and dangerous to his supporters, not even front page news. So who gets to be the extremist? What gets seen as lone radicals? What gets seen as a troubled youth? The framing, the attention, the headlines, the outrage, all of it is an example of white journalism. And then also Kyle Rittenhouse verdict.
Yeah, that was like this. I mean, we could actually do another segment after the segment that we're going to present just on Kyle Rittenhouse. But the thing is, part of the idea was that journalists like ourselves sometimes suffer from white journalism. And have you suffered recently from white journalism, or are you cured? Are you good? I mean,
it's
I know
like
it's a pandemic.
It lingers with you forever. Like it just flares up. And in all seriousness, I think with the rest of us who are aware and trying to push back, what happens is we police ourselves. We police ourselves because we are told by our many white editors, because it's still a white field, that we're being too ethnic. We're being too biased. We're being too reactionary. We're too emotional. We're too invested. And white journalists are never asked to investigate their whiteness. White journalists are never asked to police their whiteness, right? Think about it. And so I think you and me are like, will this play to the mainstream? It sucks even thinking that. Will my editor actually accept this? Will I be seen as an angry Puerto Rican or angry Pakistani? Let's be honest, you and me have thought that internally.
Oh, I think about it every day. So listen, this is a segment, the initial debut of This Week in White Journalism. It's a concept that has been co-created by myself and Wajahat Ali, the Puerto Rican and the Pakistani. And we actually focus on what we think was sort of the cornerstone of what that showed a really big example of what it is to practice white journalism and suffer from it. And thank to my Pakistani friend in this segment, you cure me. So thank you, Pakistani friend.
Thank you,
for
Puerto
curing
Rican
me.
friend. I think everyone needs a Pakistani Puerto Rican in their life to cure them from white journalism. But we hope you enjoy it. We hope you laugh with it and at it. But we also hope it sparks some reflection and some discussion about how we, all of us, can and should do better in this fourth estate.
So here is the debut by Latino Rebels of This Week in White Journalism.
Hey, it's me, Julio Ricardo Varela, your friendly neighborhood Puerto Rican journalist for Latino Rebels. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Of course, I'm talking about all 3 counts in the conviction of police officer Derek Chauvin for the murder of George Floyd. Derek Chauvin found out his badge and white privilege would not protect him from being held accountable for kneeling on George Floyd's neck for over 9 minutes and killing him in broad daylight. Do I dare dream? Would people of color finally witness a historic step towards accountability? Reform of a biased, unfair criminal justice system? Would we change the double standards about how we talk about police and racism and crime in America? To answer those questions, later in the show, we're going to interview several hot cops who posed in selfies that have since gone viral. But first, we're going to talk to a famed Harvard constitutional lawyer and massage enthusiast about why the Chauvin verdict should be reversed. Joining us from Mar-a-Lago, we have... Joining us from Mar-a-Lago, hot cops. Give you several hot cops.
Several hot cops.
No.
Several hot cops.
I've been infected. I've been infected by white journalism. I need help. I know who I can call. What?
Julio Ricardo Varela.
I'm suffering from a bad case of white journalism.
I'm in a minivan and on the way to the studio. Whatever you do, do not listen to Chuck Todd.
His both sides false equivalence appeals to my conflicted centrism.
No!
I'm about to interview Alan Dershowitz.
Hey, kid.
Wash, you came.
It's okay. White journalism, like herpes, flares up right when you're about to have a good time.
I fear it's taking over the country.
Oh, it's spreading all right.
I'm so ashamed.
You're not alone, Julio. White journalism has even infected us journalists who should know better.
What can I do? How can I be better? How do I get cured?
There's always hope. But first, we have to deprogram you. In order to understand white journalism, we're going to have to play a game of taboo. I'm going to describe the words without saying it, and you're going to try to guess it.
Okay.
All right, first one's easy. A police officer murdered an unarmed black man by kneeling on his neck for over 9 minutes.
A bad apple.
Wrong, but it's okay. Second question. 2 police officers stopped an unarmed black Latino man, an army lieutenant, in uniform no less, for a routine traffic stop. They pulled out their guns, they threatened him with violence, and they pepper sprayed him.
A reasonable response by reasonable police officers.
Wrong.
2 bad apples?
Wrong.
Reasonable bad apple.
No. An unarmed black man was shot and killed by the police, and the officer alleges she mistook her gun for her taser.
An accidental mistake by a bad apple.
Stop with the fruit analogies. An apple did not kneel on the neck of George Floyd. A cop did. A bunch of apples did not shoot into the apartment of Breonna Taylor. A bunch of cops did. If it keeps happening again and again and again, Maybe it's not just a few rotten apples. Maybe the root, the tree, and the orchard are rotten. Just saying.
But not all cops are bad.
Of course not. Just like not all journalists are guilty of white journalism. In fact, some of my favorite journalists are white journalists. But just like there's a problem of systemic police brutality, there is also a problem of systemic white journalism.
Right.
There's been a consistent double standard and bias when it comes to reporting on people of color. According to a 2019 study that analyzed coverage of 219 mass shootings, white mass shooters received much more sympathetic treatment in the media than black shooters. In fact, they were 95% more likely to be described as mentally ill than black shooters. White shooters are often humanized with articles and news coverage describing them as quiet and unassuming by loving family and community members. In order to be labeled racist, you apparently need to hold a sign, explicitly say you're racist, or leave behind a white supremacist racist manifesto. Both policing and white journalism in America follow the Family Guy chart for their in-depth analysis.
Awesome. I can pass as okay. Oh, sorry, Waj. You're screwed.
Always, Julio. Always.
Maybe journalists can cover all communities and not just the ones that are okay on the Family Guy chart. Maybe we can get out of the Rust Belt and the diners and go talk to other Americans from those communities of color to understand why there's such a distrust with law enforcement. And maybe media companies can just hire more competent journalists of color. Or we can just continue to suffer through more bad days of white journalism. I'm Julio Ricardo Varela for Latino Rebels.